Jimmy fucking Chalmers.
Language.
That's what I do. I drink and I know things.
Welcome to the Nerdcast with your hosts, Dark Samus 288 and Snakeskin 94. On this episode of the Nerdcast, we take a look at Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope.
Okay, so technically this is only called Star Wars, but yet it's also Episode 4. What is it? I don't know how to think of this movie anymore.
It's like a time paradox, but the paradox is, it's even more paradox to think this took place a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and this came out first. So technically, when episode 1 through 3 came out, they should have been said, a slightly longer time ago in the same galaxy, about the same length away. But
that would honestly, it kind of reminds me of Blue Harvest, where they're like a long time ago, but somehow in the future. So this whole movie, and I feel what really sets this movie up is the fact that it is all about, really, if you really think about it, the story is a lot less intricate.
Complex?
Yeah, a lot less complex than a lot of the other movies. This one, it's really all about getting a droid, which is R2-D2, from the plains of Tatooine to Yavin 4, or one of the moons of Yavin 4, I should say, and get the plans and destroy the Death Star. That's pretty much all it is.
They just happen to take a massive detour and go to the Death Star. Although that's probably some of the appeal of why a lot of people think the original trilogy was a lot better as far as story goes, just because it was a lot more simpler. I mean, this movie has like one plot going. Empire and Jedi have two kind of going simultaneously, but that's about it. Episodes 1 and 3 had episode 2 and 3, and we had like 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
But, there's a few things I want to get out of the way first. Now, I know that popular belief dictates that, it's the original trilogy. Everything about them is amazing, and you're mostly right. But, what is it about, this usually is where we start the summary of the plot, but let's be honest. If you've seen all the prequel movies, you've seen all the original trilogy like 49 times. Mm-hmm. But this movie kicks it off. And, I remember the first time I saw it, it was interesting because there's not a lot of Force-related stuff except when he shoots the missile at the blaster at the Death Star. Luke only gets the lightsaber in this one, and he's just training with it. And then there's one fight, which is between Vader and Ben, and it's not nearly as intricate or fast-paced as the other ones, even in episode 5 and 6, which, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. But I think it is the simplicity of it, the practical effects and how cool it looked for its time. The fact, let's be honest, Han Solo is a badass. Stuff like that,
Mm-hmm. And in all honesty, I was kind of worried because episode 7 is going to have an all-new cast, minus, the original cast. But now that I really think about it,
Episode 4.
The original trilogy had Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, and Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford was the only one who people kind of knew because of American Graffiti. And he comes in, and Mark Hamill hasn't really been known for much. His Joker debut wasn't until a couple years later.
God, that was 20-some years after that.
Exactly. So all their fame and superstardom came from this movie.
And, And I know where you're going with that, and that's exactly how I feel. Some people are nervous, like, when they casted Finn and then the other two new main characters in Kylo Ren, everyone's like, man, who are these guys? This is these inexperienced actors, blah, blah. But I'm like, the original Star Wars cast, I mean, except for the guy that played Ben, who he's kind of like Christopher Lee in the sense that he's an accomplished, acclaimed actor who's done all these versatile roles, but he's really remembered for one thing: Christopher Lee being Dracula, and this guy being Ben Kenobi. But
Alec Guinness, yes. And here's
Alec
the thing:
Guinness.
would you really want to have your last name correlate with the Book of World Records and a beer? You can't get much better than that.
Yeah. And yeah, so when I really thought about it, I'm like, I'm not too worried. Besides, you have Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher on set, so they'd probably mentor them too. And I'm pretty sure George Lucas had to have gone on set a few times just to check up on things. So I have to believe they have the right guidance, just like how Ben Kenobi was to everyone on the set, during this. And even the practical effects thing, I look at this movie like it's hard to find a copy or version of the original cut of Star Wars, but I was able to track the closest one I've seen to that is the VHS of the original Star Wars.
Yep.
And that's probably the closest I'll ever come to seeing the original cut. But
except now Disney is saying that they're going to make the original trilogy publicly available, like nothing but the practical effects.
Ooh, that's cool. And yeah, and just that. And honestly, I think people ragged on the CGI too hard in the prequel trilogy, and also praised the practical effects almost too much, in the sense that I remember when they announced that they were going to have practical effects for the mostly practical effects for episode 7. Everyone's like, "Oh my God, this is the greatest news ever!" But honestly, I'm thinking,
okay then. So while he's getting his stuff together, really the prequel trilogy, when it first came out, it was one of those things where you didn't have the ability to have these big bombastic worlds. You didn't have the ability to use other effects other than just practicality. It's amazing how much a practical set can do when you have those limited capabilities. Now, when it came to story, like I said, it feels like it's the most simple, but also really complex at the same time. Because you start out at the bottom of Yavin 4, or not Yavin 4, you start out with a shot of Tatooine. And you see this ship running from this gigantic Star Destroyer, which, in the prequels, those were Republic gunships. I mean, and it's one of those things that when you start looking at these symbols from the prequel trilogy, you're seeing, oh my gosh, it's the symbol of the Empire now. And, if you've seen the original trilogy first, that's the Empire. And with the prequel trilogy, it's like, why are these guys being portrayed as the good guys? And when it came down to all of it, I think it was more the way the effects were used rather than that it was the fact that it was practical effects. I think it was more the fact that it was utilized in a good way. The actors, I think, who was it? Kenny Davis, I believe his name is. He does R2-D2, or Kenny Baker. I'm sorry. The fact that they utilized him in that way to have him be this little droid thing, it's really kind of awesome. So, going a little bit farther though, just the whole way that the Force wasn't really mentioned much at all. And a lot of the stuff that is mentioned in this movie that we actually see from the prequels is more of just like it's a legend. It's something that happened a very long time ago, and no one likes to talk about it. When you're at the scene, when Ben and Luke are in Ben's little hut, and they're like, "You fought with my father in the Clone Wars." It's one of those things that you know nothing about this unless you've seen Attack of the Clones or Revenge of the Sith, technically, and or heck, even the TV show, since that's canon. But you don't. It doesn't delve into exposition. It's more of like it's happened. So we're gonna move on now. And I think one of the best lines of this movie was when Luke took out his lightsaber, and when Luke took out Anakin's lightsaber, and it's just like, what is this? Your father's lightsaber. This is the weapon of a Jedi Knight. An elegant weapon for a more civilized age. And if you remember back in Revenge of the Sith, he said that blasters were uncivilized. So you kind of see a lot of correlation between this movie and the prequel trilogy, which I think that's actually one really good thing that happened with the prequel trilogy. They wanted to remember their source material, and I feel that was one thing that really helped them out. Now the new effects that they have for the special edition, overall not too jarring, thank goodness, because in all honesty, a lot of it was kind of jarring at first, especially when you have the first scene with Jabba the Hutt. And when you have that first scene, it's more the fact of he doesn't look right. He looks way too thin. And also the fact that it feels like everything is just like repeated from the Greedo confrontation. It feels like they didn't have to really do anything. And there goes Snakeskin again. So, overall, honestly, just the way everything was utilized was really good. Now, their detour to the Death Star probably has some of the best acting in the movie. And when Han Solo is established as being this scoundrel type character, the one thing that gets him of saving Leia is she's rich. She could pay you handsomely for getting her free. It's probably a good idea. And when you find out later that he has a debt to Jabba that he really needs to pay off or he's a deadman, it's kind of honestly one of those. I'm glad that he was going to use his money in that way. Which really, in all honesty, since
I'm going to use money to track down my internet provider and shoot him in the face is what I'm going to do.
uh-huh. Now, I'm guessing what you were going to say is that the way the practical effects were utilized was better in this movie than it was,
Yeah, what I was gonna say was, I feel like people ragged on the CG too much. Like if the CG in Revenge of the Sith was how it had looked all the time, people probably would have gravitated towards it a little better. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's 2015, guys. I mean, practical effects are awesome. I love a good Harryhausen film too. But I mean, come on, let's be realistic here. You know, that's just my opinion, though. I think it's
don't-
gonna look great because let's be honest, Star Wars movies always look good.
Oh yeah.
But
I don't think it was really the fact that it's. Here's the thing. People, when they hear the word practical effects, it's like, oh my gosh, we're finally going back. You know what? Look at this. CG is good when used well. Practical effects are good when used well.
yes,
Keywords when used well. I've seen movies with practical effects that are utterly terrible. Remember Howard the Duck?
they're bad. Yeah. I think no, don't say that one. That's another George Lucas film. He said in 20 years now.
So, with
So
it,
so yeah, you want Han Solo?
yes,
Han shot first. That's like I'm not even saying that's a literal fact. There's a picture on the internet of George Lucas literally wearing a Han shot first T-shirt.
and it's seriously awesome. When you get and really, I love how they make him a scoundrel character, but he knows where he needs to put his stuff. You know, like when he gets the Millennium Falcon and you see it, I love how Luke's just like, what a piece of junk. Because seriously, that's one of the most iconic ships in all of film. And then you just get it's called a piece of junk.
Well, it wasn't always an iconic piece of film because I mean, isn't the Millennium Falcon like a really old ship?
Yes, it's something that Lando lost in a bet to
That's right.
Han, and and really, I think the reason it became so iconic was because of how much, like how many things were different from a normal ship. It didn't look sterile. It didn't look clean. It looked like something that had beat up and abused like nobody's business. It was his transport.
It is Han Solo after all.
And then you get the point where they're hiding underneath the floor for those little smuggling compartments. That's genius. You know.
Yeah, no one can say Han Solo doesn't know what he's doing.
Absolutely. And I think when the one thing I will say, you know, I kind of said that everything kind of correlates between the prequels and this movie specifically. The one thing that did not correlate, and I know everyone says this, but the stormtroopers are pretty lame.
God. You know what? Say what you want, but let's go like this. A stormtrooper is going to get a way bigger pop from the crowd than a clone trooper. A stormtrooper, like you say the name stormtrooper, and it's like, yeah, I want to be a stormtrooper. And then they're literally competent everywhere except the original trilogy.
Yeah,
like in books and games and other spin-off stuff, they're like, oh man, these guys are deadly and they kill people. But in this movie, they're nothing short of comic relief, honestly.
Would you really look?
That's the thing about the original trilogy I've always liked is that even though Empire took a turn for the darker, these movies still felt like they were having fun with themselves, you know? The prequel trilogies to me got a little. It's not that they got serious. It felt like they took themselves too seriously sometimes. But in this movie, you know, it's like, you know, it still had its fun, you know.
And really, well, I was saying earlier also while you were kind of offline trying to get back on that
screw the internet.
that when Luke goes up to Han, it's just like, she's rich, powerful. Listen, if you got her out, the reward would be what? Well, more than you can imagine. I'm sure I can. Oh, sure, I can imagine quite a bit.
Yeah,
He still has to be smug when he's being told that he could get paid handsomely for something. That's
because
awesome.
Han Solo is like, oh man, you know, I've met those people that are like, oh, you like Boba Fett and Han Solo, so overrated. But okay, Boba Fett I can kind of understand because he's on screen for all of maybe 5 minutes in total. But come on, come on, Han Solo was literally designed to be a space cowboy.
Mm-hmm.
He was the original gangster of love. Some people call him Maurice. Wow.
Now, let's talk a little bit more about the Death Star. All the different locales that we visit inside the Death Star.
Bum, bum, bum.
Now, that whole area, that's definitely one of those clean and sterile death machines, honestly. When you really look at it, they come into a docking bay. They're in this little control room that's above the docking bay.
Yes.
And then afterwards, when they get on into all their stormtrooper gear and Obi-Wan leaves them, they go down into the prison bay, get the princess. There's a garbage chute directly underneath the prison bay. They almost get crushed. And then on their way back out, Han starts running after the stormtroopers and he beats like this battalion of like a couple hundred stormtroopers in there. And I love how he's just like, ah!
I think in the original cut it was only a room of like maybe 7 or 8 of them, but later on he added but later on Lucas troopers in there CGI wise, I think. But honestly, people are like, later changes. But honestly, I think it makes it funnier. It's funny when he ran and there's like 8 of them, but then it's like he opens the door and there's like 200 of them in there, and it's just like, and he blasts that one stormtrooper.
It starts running away. And the best thing.
I've been playing the crap out of Star Wars Battlefront, and let me tell you, that exact moment has happened to me. I've been in a rebel before, and I've ran into like one of the little quarters, and I'm just like, all right, let's do this. And then there's like 8 stormtroopers. I'm just like, fuck, and then I die.
Now, I will say the best thing is if you guys have ever played the Lego Star Wars games, there is literally a door. You literally go into a door in the 4th. No. Which mission is it? It's the 5th mission. When you're trying to escape the Death Star, there's literally a room just off to the side where as soon as you open it, there's like a battalion of like 30 stormtroopers that come rushing at you.
Yeah, I'm really glad, except for losing money, that game has no death penalty.
Uh-huh. So good.
It was a fun game.
Yeah, now they're kind of getting meh. Star Wars, the Clone Wars, when they tried to do that, the RTS elements didn't work.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. Everyone's like, oh, but Lego Batman 2 is absolutely incredible. So was Lego Batman 3. I got bored with Lego Batman 2 within the first 2 missions. Because unless you're doing it cooperatively, it feels like you're just doing work.
Someone's a Superman fan.
I ain't even a Superman fan. I'm a Spider-Man fan.
Wow, that guy. No, but seriously, the Death Star, and then the whole time you got Ben Kenobi sneaking around the Death Star, and I love the idea of, because it's their house, but Ben's just sneaking around the place, dodging this whole entire these rooms full of stormtroopers, and I just always thought it was funny to me. It's like, really, you guys can't catch him? He's like in his 60s.
Mm-hmm. And I love when he shuts down the generator, it's just like, what was that? Maybe it's another drill.
It's like really, you're working on the Death Star and you're complaining about drills. You should be not the fact that maybe Vader force choked 3 of your comrades to death yesterday. No, the drills are the worst part about volunteering to be a stormtrooper on the Death Star. Actually, if you're working on the Death Star, isn't that like if they paid stormtroopers, wouldn't that be like the highest paid job?
Mm.
So what are they complaining? I mean, granted, everyone that worked on that station died that day, but the point is, there's a time to complain and a time to whine. And unless you're, getting bullseyed by, this big old blaster into a thing that's the size of a womp rat, then,
You're pretty okay.
yeah.
Now, I love how in Blue Harvest, they remedy this whole situation and make it funny. When you have that stormtrooper, it's like, so last week I was really banging my girlfriend, and they were like, there's another drill going on. I was just like, no way.
Blue Harvest was a really good. I like Blue Harvest and something Dark Side. I don't know, the last one was kind of anime, but
Yeah.
no,
Now,
it was pretty good.
another one of the funny bits from that special was you see for a split second these 2 guys in the corridor when the blast goes off to destroy Alderaan, and they're like, so I was saying, forget pay, forget sick leave. I just want a Rayleigh. One Rayleigh, that's it. And it's like, well, what do they say? They worried be leaning all day.
That was good. There was a special on that DVD where it was like every Star Wars reference in Family Guy up to that point. And I was like, wow, they made a lot of references to Star Wars.
And when you look at what was it? Right before it destroys Alderaan, it has that little scene where it has those 2 TIE fighters going by, and the da 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 da, and then you have that one TIE fighter that's just all pipped out. It's like that is one of the best scenes in that. And additionally, when they find the couch.
Oh my god! Do you think it'll fit? Do you think it'll fit?
Yeah, it's like, all right, go.
when Ben in that thing when Ben Kenobi's getting killed, all Peter can worry about is getting the couch. Speaking of Ben getting killed, the lightsaber fight. I rewatched it recently, and it had a little more movement than I thought it did. But I mean, I'm not gonna be like, it was old, so it's not cool because of the newer stuff. No, I mean, it's just. It's kind of desensitizing to literally have watched like Obi-Wan and Anakin's fight like maybe 10 minutes earlier and then watch that fight. And it's like, Especially when Vader's like, when I left you, I was the student. And it's like, really? I mean, obviously I know these came after, but I'm just saying, Obi-Wan kind of left you for dead, rotting, leaving your burning, rotting carcass on the side of like a giant plant is essentially an ashtray. I don't think you left a student. I think you left like a burn victim.
Yeah, exactly. And that whole scene, everyone's like, why does Obi-Wan's lightsaber tend to be always like almost shutting down by the end of that? And there was an interesting theory, and I think this was Christmas of 2002, I want to say. Attack of the Clones had come out earlier that year, and there was a magazine that I have that it was pretty much all Star Wars. It had like the different ships from Attack of the Clones. Like, it went even down to the gondola that Anakin and Padme were in when they went to that little area
Oh,
when they were
wow,
talking about the
really?
island. Yeah. And it was even so good that, actually, let me grab it. It was so good that the ending page was talking about this game.
Jedi Outcast.
Uh-huh. It was talking about Star Wars Jedi Outcast.
That's pretty dope.
Right? Now, anyway, one of the theories, and it was like a Q&A section of the magazine, and it was asking, why did Obi-Wan's lightsaber tend to almost like deteriorate during the fight? And they were saying that, especially in the Force Unleashed games, how you can have different power crystals that give you different effects?
Yeah.
Well, apparently, Darth Vader's power crystal was far more powerful than Obi-Wan's power crystal. So it was causing Obi-Wan's power crystal to shut down because of how much more powerful Vader's power crystal was.
I'm pretty sure the effects team just botched a little bit when they made the movie.
Yeah, but
Interesting theory, though, that maybe that would explain why he kept blocking every single move in that boss battle.
Uh-huh.
Seriously, I like the Force Unleashed. I really do, but screw the boss fights.
Mm-hmm. Especially from Force Unleashed 2. Oh my gosh.
And
That part where you're fighting Vader in Camino on top of all the different growth vats, it's like, I can't even, it's too confined, honestly.
I can't even,
Mm-hmm. Now, let's get on to the Battle of Yavin.
Yeah! I'm sorry, that whole scene is awesome. All of it, to this day.
Music
Awesome.
is incredible.
Yes.
The whole thing where it's like, Red Leader standing by, Red 4 standing by, Red 11 standing by, Red 5 standing by. It's just like, it's a rebellion, but it's a militaristic rebellion.
Yeah, I know. I feel like oftentimes people didn't give the rebellion enough credit. Because, they didn't win all the time, but, they weren't exactly ill-equipped. Well, they were, but,
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. Now, that whole scene, the way they shot it, and when you really look at the practical effects, it's absolutely incredible. Come on. There's a picture where they're having to do the opening call for episode 5. Literally, It is them. It's the words on a black TV, like a black slate, and it's them moving the camera at that exact angle to make it look like it's an opening crawl.
Oh, that's what, I've seen that, and I was just so it really makes me wonder, how did he come up with all this? Have you ever listened to like a band like Korn or Gorillaz or something, and it's like, man, it's just so unique. How did they come up with this? That's my thought for Lucas when he created Star Wars, because like nowadays we're like, yeah, Star Wars, but when this movie came out, there was no yeah, there was those Marvel comic tie-ins, but with the Space Bunny.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, he had to set up the world and the characters, and he had to come up with the ships, and then he eventually, met Ben Burt and all this. And it's like, man, New Hope is probably the Star Wars movie I've always been most interested in as far as productions goes, just because it's the first. So it's like, man, how did you do that? You're so cool, George Lucas. I don't care what the internet says about you.
Exactly, because when you really look at it, that's the beauty of filmmaking back in the pretty much back from the 30s all the way up to the late 90s. Was the beauty of, I want to make this, but I can't make it with a computer, which computers weren't even around back then. So, How did they do it? They used their creativity. And it's absolutely beautiful.
And I think that's why Star Wars originally, attracted so many people, was just because it's like it's literally like you always hear the old folks say, nothing like it had ever been done before.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Absolutely.
and it's when I think about that where I can kind of understand the scrutiny as far as a creative level kind of goes on the prequel trilogy. But I think that, Ryan whatever said, I think any Star Wars thing, I think no Star Wars thing has any lack of the imagination that originally inspired it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, that's just what I've always thought about it. And I actually did get to rewatch this movie a few days ago, and I just in a way it was kind of like rewatching it all over again because I hadn't seen it in a long time. There was stuff I'd forgotten about. I forgot, man, I love those droids, and Luke's a good kid. Leia's cool. Han's cool. Darth Vader's ominous. That one general guy that's that orders the destruction of Alderon's a prick, and I'm glad he died.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, this is a good movie.
Mm-hmm. It really is. So, do you want to get your score set up ready to go so we can score this?
Yeah. It's hard. It's almost tricky to say because this movie. I'm trying to come up with a score, but my damn nostalgia is getting in the way. But honestly, it is a very good movie. It's a little slower paced actually than most Star Wars movies because there's actually a lot of down moments where they're kind of sitting and talking, explaining stuff. But it's all really well written and interesting, and then the action scenes, like the last scene, is so climactic and awesome. But I'd have to give this movie probably a solid 9, honestly.
Yeah. I'd actually give it an 8.5 because as much as I love this movie, and I really do, Empire's seriously the superior film.
Well, yeah. Why do you think it's everyone's favorite? Have you ever met that one guy that's just like, I love Return of the Jedi the best?
I used to be that kind of person.
Maybe that's why you like green so much. It's not because of the Packers. It's because because Ewoks are your spirit animal.
That would be actually... No, Tauntaus are my spirit animal.
And I thought they smelled bad on the outside.
Oh, so yeah, great movie.
Yeah.
And
it's
can you
timeless,
believe
really.
it? We have now 3 weeks until Force Awakens.
I seriously have watched that that trailer that he had from that one football game, the 60-second one. I've seriously watched that 40 times. Every time it builds up and it's just like, just let it. And then the Star Wars fades and I get chills. I'm so happy. New Star Wars. I'm gonna cry.
It's so good. Thank you for making this again.
Do 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 do. Yeah, this movie's awesome. We'll see you next week for Empire.
Yep. See you next week.
And I'm not talking about the new Fox show.
Oh, burn!